Basil. You'd never have thought would have made it in YouTube so quick. I mean, we were at the Virgin Islands.
Unbelievable. I mean, breathtaking. You know, infinity pool, these gorgeous beaches.
Richard Branson's private island.
It's so funny how stuff works out, you know. Nicole Kidman sent us the money for the last episode. 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. She's friends with Richard Branson. Next thing you know, we're invited to kick it on Richard's island.
I mean, luckily he's a fan of the show, Baz.
A lot of really good fans, man, and we would not be here in the Virgin Islands
without you, the viewers at home. I mean,
yeah,
it's tough to do this, Baz.
Yeah, and we put in a lot of work to get here, but it really feels great to be here in the Virgin Islands on Richard Branson's private island.
Chilling. I mean, it's beautiful, Baz, isn't it? I mean, sun, salute,
so nice, man. I've been going to that bar for drinks, so I'm gonna go get another one soon. You want me to get you a water or a granola bar? Or?
Yeah, maybe a little bowl of fruit or something.
Okay. Yeah.
But listen, don't get too messed up because we still do have a show to do. So you can do the news in the pool.
Okay.
That's perfect. I pre-recorded an interview to save us having to do too much work. Max
great.
Nicholson. A couple of exotic Ducati Baz. You're going to like it. And there is a bit of a problem.
What's that?
Nate.
Yeah, Nate is going to be a problem. He will be none too happy that he is back at the studio. But
We forgot him.
Well, we love him, but, you know, only...
Richard.
Some,
Richard only had room for 2 in the plane, didn't he?
Yeah.
Sorry, Nate.
Next time, Nate. So, anyway, thanks so much for being part of this exotic episode.
Getting us here, really, to the Caribbean. I mean, God, what can we do without you? So, to the show.
And me and Mick are gonna wing on over to London and jam with the Stones.
Well, welcome to our interview tonight. So I'm pretty excited, Max Nicholson. So we have kind of an interesting, weird degree of separation because your sister-in-law has been my travel agent for
years.
Years and years and years. Wonderful lady, by the way. Man travel if you need her.
Does a great job.
That was a bit of a shameless plug, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's fine.
So Max, you know, you're sort of here tonight because you've got a bit of a problem, really, haven't you? It's a Ducati thing, and this started when you were, about 11 years old with a small Honda?
Yeah, it started with a Honda, but before that it was a moped, a 50cc Pooch, I believe we called them.
We had a lot of those in England, so yeah,
right.
Great little bikes.
And then it shifted to the Honda. And the Honda, I don't think my parents worried too much about it because the back wheel was blown out. All the spokes had pushed through the rim, and I took it apart and I put a whole roll of duct tape on the rim to hold the spokes in, put it all back together, and it held, and I rode the hell out of that bike.
So that was a little Honda 125 dirt bike?
Yeah, like a little cross bike, yeah.
Yeah, and you were what, 10, 11 years
Yeah,
old?
probably 12 years old.
And did your parents?
They weren't real privy to that. I kept it kind of off to the side and in the back in the playhouse in the corner and did my best to make it look as unrideable as possible, but I was ripping it.
So that was where you got the taste, but then you sort of went into mountain biking and road biking, pretty heavy duty. Huh?
Right, rode mountain bikes for probably the next 10 or 12 years.
Yeah.
Got into road riding, a little bit of mountain bike racing with the Bike Source crew.
Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Yeah,
and sometime around the late 90s, I saw the Monsters, and I was like, man, I gotta have one of those.
So you came back. That was the 750 Monster Dark. Right?
Correct. And air cooled, flat matte tank, matte mud guard, and I rode it a little bit too hard and may or may not have over revved it at some track days in Savannah. And by over revving it, I completely cooked it and sent it up to BCM to have a big bore kit put in it.
So this is when the problem began.
And that's
the beginning of the end. Right?
And that was the uptick into the Farachi high pipes and the billeted rear sets. And I was kind of going backwards doing it all on a 750, but it helped me understand modifying Ducatis, and it went downhill from there pretty much.
I like it. Yeah. So you modded it out. You did track. Did you do track days after it was built?
Yeah, I did. And I did those with Jim Calandro and US Desmo.
Yeah, again, these degrees of separation. I mean, Calandro's a great friend of ours. I mean, we've done his track days. Yeah.
There's not a better place to go learn to ride on a track.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I think US Desmo was one of the best.
Oh, I'm saying the track days are everyone's so helpful. The old birds help the young guys, and it's a great place to learn. But started riding track days on the modified bike and then started finding my way into other Ducatis. And I failed to mention to you earlier, it was a 2001 996 that I had after the Monster. So I jumped to a 996.
Which is quite a significant jump up in horsepower and handling and braking.
Everything.
Yeah.
2-valve to a 4-valve bike. Can't believe I forgot about that bike. We've had the pleasure of going through so many, but that was my track bike for a long time, the 996. And then I started falling in love with the vintage stuff.
And that's when you went to the 900 SS.
That's when I was looking at the Cycle Trader, which for the young folks, that's where you used to buy motorcycles from.
Yeah, they were like newspaper things that you had to open. You had to go buy them, look in them, and look at pictures.
Right,
and you couldn't enlarge them or touch on anything. Yeah.
And this, there was an old like a '76 900 Super Sport at a used car dealership in the back corner that used to belong to the owner. And I went up there and looked at it, and I offered a salesman $1,500 for it. Oh my goodness. And the wiring harness was ripped out, and it had been modified for track use. It didn't have any of the instrument cluster, just a big old white tachometer. It was beautiful. And that's what really sent me down the vintage hole, was that. And it took me a couple of years to get it right with a handmade exhaust.
They were a little bit finicky, those things, weren't they? I mean,
absolutely.
You had to do it right. Did you put big carbs, big pistons, pipes, and stuff? Or
it actually already had the pistons on it, and it had, I want to say
40s, weren't they?
No, 42s.
Oh, wow, the big carbs.
Yes, yeah. And but it just took a while to get the timing right, and we tried an electronic ignition. We tried all kinds of stuff until finally we got it to go. And that bike was heavy, and it was slow. But on the track, when you were kept it at higher RPMs, it was a fun bike, and it was reverse shift and GP shift. So I would bring my 996 to the track, and I would go back and forth between the 996 and the 76 track bike.
Trying to figure out the foot.
And it would take me a lap or two to kind of...
Right, so basically what Max is saying is, like, on the older ones, you shifted on the right. So like with my Laverda, it was 1 down and 4 up. Right. But yours was actually 1 up and 4 down on the right-hand side.
You crank it down to go faster on the track with the old bike. So
and I don't know if you guys have ever ridden a bike with a right foot gear shift. It is really confusing. Which foot to use.
It'll make you think. Yep. And so I did just countless track days on that bike. And in the meantime, I picked up some other earlier bikes. So you have, and we won't talk about it tonight because we're going to hope you're going to come back later on, but you've got a couple of 350 singles, you've got a Scrambler and a Sebring, which are very old. Yes.
But from the 900 Super Sport, what did you move on to there? You started getting to more modern stuff.
Yeah, I picked up a Panta, a 650 Panta, like an 80, I want to say it was like an 83 Panta.
Yeah. Not terribly well known in this country, I think the 650s were.
Right, and it was really hard to find the last little bits for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, not very sought after. They seem to be picking up some steam in Europe now. I'm seeing a lot more people restoring them because some of the stuff's kind of getting out of price point for a lot of people. And around that time I picked up the Scrambler, which is a 1969 350 Scrambler.
Yeah, which is a completely another realm altogether.
And that's also a right shift, but it's regular pattern. And the Scrambler came out of a garage, I want to say, in New Mexico. So it's got the chrome tank. It's what I believe to be the original squared off tires. Which it's a cool bike. It's by far from mint, but it's still, you throw a 6-volt battery in there, put some gas in it, and arguably anyone who's ridden a Scrambler with the wide bars on them, I would say it's the most comfortable and best handling and riding Ducati that I have owned or currently own.
Wow.
It's got a kind of a banana seat. It is so fun to ride. It is such a fun motorcycle to ride.
So, moving on back to your modern bikes, I'm trying to remember where we went. Where did you go after the 900 SS?
Around that time, I purchased a 1979 black and gold Super Sport,
which was the newer
which was
The new gen.
Well, no, that was not the S. What's that called? The S. I forgot what it was called. It was the last of the bodywork that was true to the 70s style with the big windscreen. They started taking the bevels and putting a little bit more sculpture.
Oh, so it still was a vintage.
Yes, it was still.
Was that one of Calandro's?
That was Jim Calandro's
I
bike.
got you now,
He
yeah.
knew that I had the other vintage stuff, and he, always tucked in the corner of his garage, he's got like a Fozzie the Bear sheet over this bike, and he finally took it off, and it was an F1. And seeing one in person, I was like, I've got to have that bike. And that's when my side quest, always keeping an eye open, trying to find an F1, but we'll get to that in a second.
Right, so you got the 900 SS from Calandro, then you sold that. And what did you, then is that when you came to the Halewood?
And that's when I came to the Halewood. I got hit by a car on my 996 and totaled my 996 and broke me pretty well. I've got a rod in my femur, and
Ouch.
I've got some hardware to remember that crash.
Which
by.
femur?
Left.
Oh, I have 3 4-inch bolts in mine.
There you go. I've got 2 screws. The rod,
Right.
2 screws.
With the same club.
Got a plate in the ankle. Yeah, it was solid. Good times. So the 996 went on to greener pasture. And about that time, I had been watching the Halewood, and the story of Ducati selling these things over the internet. They were the first company to sell out an entire run of anything, like a vehicle-wise, on the internet. They only made 1 or 2, from what I understand, for one of the big motorcycle shows in Europe, and they had such a good response to it. That's when they said, we're going to do a quick run. They're supposed to do 1,000, and they end up making 2,000, and there's, I believe, 400 in the U.S.
So quick backstory. Mike Halewood obviously was one of England's most famous motorcycle racers, and he came out of retirement from a GP career and rode a Ducati 900 SS at the Isle of Man. And I think in probably around early 80s, they made the original Mike Halewood replica.
Correct.
Which was a replica of the bike he raced at the Isle of Man. And then in 2002...
They made this run of motorcycles.
Pierre de Blanche designed a Mike Halewood replica.
Correct.
And that's the one that you have.
Correct.
Okay, so that kind of takes us from childhood to there in about 7 seconds.
Right.
So you bought 2 of these really beautiful bikes in the studio. We haven't had a bike in for a while. So if you'd like, would you tell us about the F1 in your own words? Maybe chat to the audience. Let us know what we've got. They'll see pictures in B-roll, so don't worry about.
I got to tell you, it is. This bike to me is just kind of the last of the true race bike for the road from the late 70s, 80s, where it's very stripped down, very purpose built. One of my most favorite things about this motorcycle, when you sit on it, the base of the gas tank is about maybe 6 inches wide. So at its narrowest point, where the trellis frame comes in, before it goes back to the seat, it's just so narrow, and you can squeeze your legs all the way around the gas tank and tuck in behind the fairing. Everything has a purpose. There's nothing on this bike for play or for, it's all business. Most of these F1s were stripped down and raced in Battle of the Twins in the 80s, and so
it's hard to find an original one that hasn't been molested, basically.
Correct. And there's a lot of race bikes out there. It's not uncommon to see these for sale. It's just there's so few of them didn't get hacked up for racing. We went to the Vintage Festival in Barber when Ducati was the marquee probably 10 years ago, and I brought that bike down, and I brought the Halewood down. But they had under a tent, Vicky Smith put together a great group. There was maybe 12 or 14 F1s there, and then of course the race F1s and the ones that the Santa Monica and the special ones.
So this is a pretty special bike. I mean, real quick, top to bottom, the exhaust pipe, is that original? It's a 2-in-1?
It's a 2-in-1. That is a race. That's a Bub.
Okay.
2-in-1, and it's for competition use only. You know, we all know how that goes,
that's it.
right? Has open carburetors.
Yeah, I got to just jump in here. Guys, I'm sitting here looking at the bike, and I'm looking right down into this massive great bell mouth in the back of that Del Auto carburetor. What is the size on those carburetors?
Those are 36s, I
So
believe.
it's pretty good sized carbs for a 750 air-cooled.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Trellis frame.
Now, again, the front rim on that guy is...
Is that a 16? Mm-hmm. I was looking at that. I was thinking,
so-
yeah, because back in
it's-
those days, they thought that was cool, didn't they? The
They-
Basos had them, and
Correct. And I tell you, the first maybe 15 or 20 minutes I'm on the bike, it turns in, it's just balanced weird. It turns in hard. And I'm a bigger guy, and it is a little bit of a smaller bike, so my knees are up a little bit. So if I start to go the wrong way, it's just, you know, me trying to sit on a football. It's not the prettiest of things.
but once you get warmed up, yeah.
Once you get warmed up and get used to it, it just sings. It's a brilliant bike to ride. It's not the fastest, you know. And I think I did maybe 1, maybe 2 track days on this bike, and I jumped back and forth between that and the Halewood, and it's just a little bit squirrely on the track.
Yeah, not quite as planted as something like the Halewood.
Correct. The suspension is original, so it's a little bit
wooden.
clunky, and honestly, I usually don't have a problem with crashing motorcycles. I don't want to, obviously, and I don't want to damage the bikes, but you know, I would never want my bikes to be doorstops.
Yeah.
And so everything I've had or I've ever had, I've ridden. Now, there's been times where I had, you know, some things in the garage that I just couldn't. I was at a point where there's just too many things going on to like try and ride everything. So there was some potential for something to be a doorstop temporarily. But again, back to this bike here, you know, everywhere it goes, it draws, especially Harley guys and BMW guys. It's just a special bike that just really a lot of people just don't see.
Beautiful. Well, I'm kind of itching also to talk about the Halewood here, because this is not original.
Correct.
At all, right?
So I bought this bike in Charlotte from a pilot, and he's a lifelong Ducati guy, and you know, he got on the waiting list. He did the whole thing. He got on the internet when it was dial up, and you just kept having to like, you know, this was I think they sold them in like 99 or 2000 is when they actually sold them, and I might be incorrect. You know, you can correct me in the comments. And so he bought it, and I'm 6'2", he's probably 6'4", 280. He's a big guy, and he just wasn't. He was too big for the bike.
Yeah. It's pretty cramped seat.
Right. Now it's a tall bike, but it is a little bit crowded once you're up into the riding position. So
did he put the carbon fiber?
No, he
this
did.
Is all your...
This was all you know, my vision for the bike.
It's all part of this addiction, right? It's
Correct.
all been going downhill. We're getting F1s. We're buying Halewood replicas. Now
Right.
we're buying.
And so
Brett's scoring carbon fiber after hours.
yes,
Woo!
I'll tell you. But there is one piece that actually came from a shop in Japan, and at one point I had Dave Collier. What do we call him?
Basil.
We call him Basil. At one point I had Basil call Japan because he lived there for a few months.
And he could speak enough Japanese.
Well, he could not. I think he may have claimed to be able to speak enough Japanese, but needless to say, we didn't get that deal done, and I didn't have the opportunity to get this one piece of carbon fiber from that one obscure company in Japan for probably 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
But back to it, I bought it stock. I just loved the way it looked. I loved the tail. I loved the pipes sticking out, the way the angle the pipes are. I mean, so much thought went into designing this bike. They designed the bike. Obviously, the designer is just a wizard.
Oh, Pierre, he's a wonderful human being too.
And there were secondary things that after the bike was done and they put into production. For example, the bike has 2 batteries on it, and when they finished building the bike, from what I have read, they didn't really have a place to put the battery that was not, you know, it messed up the aesthetics of the bike. So what they did was they actually split the battery and tucked it up under the front fairing, and they put a jumper over it, and you can see that there's a half battery there and the other half is on the other side. Little
Crazy
things like that.
stuff, huh?
Right. So I had the bike, and I just loved it so much, and I saw these carbon fiber kits for it, and it was just really hard to kind of justify. And it took me a while to, again, horse trade. Throughout this whole Ducati thing, I would sell parts after I took them off. I'm not one of these guys that has every single box wrapped up in the garage that go with the bike. I helped fuel this addiction by buying something, modifying it, selling something to kind of kick this can down the road. But I was able to get the carbon fiber body kit, and I sent the bike up to BCM in Laconia, New Hampshire.
So they did the motor.
They did, and that's where we got to talking with Leslie Grossman at the time, who I think was the sales manager at GM, and he's like, let's talk about this stuff. I think I know where to get one of these kits, and we've got a good relationship. Let's talk about doing some stuff. So I sent the bike to him, and that's when we put a 955 kit in it, remapped it, stay in tune system, and then the big one was the carbon fiber wheels.
The BST wheels.
The BST wheels.
Yeah. They just changed. My Speed Triple has them, and I mean, you just put them on, and it's like, holy smoke.
Boop.
Yeah.
It's really like the
Yeah.
razor of a knife, the edge of a knife rather.
Did you polish the triple clamp yourself?
No,
when came?
that was a design cue.
Design cue.
It was the polished triple clamp, the back of the speedometer, and they just got the details, the chrome, or the little bit of polished aluminum around the headlamp, the support. This was the precursor to the Sport Classic line.
Yeah.
Without this, no Sport Classic.
And Dave had a Sport Classic, right?
He did.
Yep.
He may have had two. I think he had two at one time.
Yeah. Well, Max,
so-
I got to tell you, that thing is absolutely beautiful, and you really don't see you don't see a lot of the new gen Halewood replicas, and to find a carbon fiber one with the wheels is perfect. So we're going to let you get out of here. Thanks so much for bringing
Thank you for
your
having
bikes.
me.
Yeah, I
Pleasure.
hope you guys really enjoyed that. We like having these Ducati addicts on the show, and you can see this addiction's been working out quite nicely for us today.
Yes, it has.
And perhaps at some point down the road, you would care to bring back the singles and sort of give us if any of you guys are interested in older 60s Ducati singles, that might be kind of a nice
Be my
nice
pleasure.
chat. So
Happy to do it.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
Hey, you guys. Again, just chilling in this just gorgeous, exotic location here on Richard Branson's private island. We are definitely on Richard Branson's private island right now, and this is a beautiful infinity pool here. And I'm going to bring you the news. Might as well, while we're down here, get you some more news. And if you don't mind, since it's such a cool subject, I'm going to try to do a little bit more on the UFO phenomenon. I was a little messed up last episode. I bounced all over the place. I apologize for that. All right, so I'm going to try to start. I'm going to try to give you a cohesive narrative this time, if that's possible for Basil. And I think it probably is. And so here goes. The UFO phenomenon. Now they're calling them UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. Okay. And last time I was bouncing all over the place, but I touched on the Nimitz Encounters. And this is one to Google or hop on YouTube when you're just like, what was Basil talking about with, alien life and UAPs? And what you'll find is that on November 14th in 2004, this is the footage that the Pentagon released as legit. This is the Nimitz Encounters. And a fighter pilot named David Fravor was called out to check out something weird that the radar guy saw. And he goes out there to check out this thing with his, actually think he had a wing woman, and then two other pilots, a pilot and co-pilot, another plane, at least a couple of planes. And they go and they check this thing out, and they look down and see a disturbance on the surface of the ocean. They're like, okay, weird, like bubbles, random stuff, something big. And then on top of it, they see what is now called the flying tic-tac. And it is basically a spaceship that's buzzing all around this thing above the ocean, almost like, some kind of support craft or something. And they're like, what? And so he goes down there to engage this thing, and it kind of flies up at him and freaks them all out. And I think you would probably be freaked out if you saw, like, you know, a tic-tac the size of a school bus with no wings, no rudder, no, like, you know, propulsion of any kind, bouncing around. Bonkers, right? And so the thing takes off, boom, out of sight, and the radar guy's like, well, dude, now it's over by Hawaii. This has all happened off the coast of San Diego. And a lot of really spooky stuff like this has happened since. But yeah, they go back to the Nimitz or whatever, the big, you know, aircraft carrier, and the radar guy's like, yeah, dude, this thing and other things, it wasn't just the one tic-tac. There were other, like almost a fleet of these things over a period of time. And it came from space, from 80,000 feet above sea level to sea level in like a second. And so between the radar operator and all these fighter pilots, they're just like, whoa, you know, this is some crazy, crazy stuff. Next thing you know, some like real life MIBs show up. They take all the hard drives. There's still the footage, and there's still, like, you know, this proper documentation from some proper witnesses. And I did some reading and found some other stuff where a very reputable engineer who like knows about electrogravitic technology looked at the video and said, man, I think there's like a warp drive bubble around these things. Like, subtleties in the video show this kind of literally just a bubble around these things where they're, you know, upsetting the, you know, gravitational nature of their like localized surroundings. And this is kind of what you keep hearing, you know, as far as the capabilities of true exotic propulsion. You know, we're not firing rockets anymore. We're bending space-time around our vessel. We don't feel anything while we're traveling because everything's traveling around us. And I think it's part of, like, you know, the Einstein-Rosen bridge or whatever. And it's the same kind of stuff that Bob Lazar was talking about, who I think is legit and actually worked at S4 and saw, you know, some kind of reverse engineered stuff at the very least. You know, he just talks about, look, you know, you have to make a gravity well in front of your craft and a gravity hill behind your craft. And now you are traveling with gravity. And whether that's like, you know, never leveraging like the, you know, the net force or the flux of the, you know, environment of space, whatever. But yeah, like it's almost like a dark matter, you know, propulsion. And wow, there's a little breeze. I'm shivering a little bit. So that is exotic propulsion in a nutshell. I think it's a really cool subject. So I'm just going to relax here for now in the Virgin Islands at Richard Branson's private island. And I thank you for watching, and good night.
Good evening. I'm Nate, and this is Get Off My Lawn. As you can see, I'm all ready for the hot weather and beautiful views and the sand and the beach volleyball. But those jagaloons didn't invite me. Here I was all ready to go. Got my crabby floaties. Shirt off, real excited about that. But I guess I'm not going to go this time. You know, it's sad when you don't get to go as part of the group. But let's talk about that. It brings up something that I think we've all faced before, and that's the group ride. So I want to take a few minutes and talk about riding in a group. Some of you are probably very experienced with riding in a group, and some of you may be inexperienced. So let me just break it down from both levels. All right? So first of all, let's talk about preparing for the ride. Your friends ask you, hey, you want to come ride with us Sunday? Great. Okay? Let me lay down a few rules that sometimes are unspoken, and you don't want to go in looking like a jagaloon like my friends in the Caribbean down there with all the babes and all the drinks. Anyway, first of all, don't be late. Don't be that girl or guy that shows up 10 minutes after everybody was buzzing and ready to go. Okay? Because that stinks. Everybody's ready to go. They don't want to leave you, but they don't want to sit there either. You're putting people in a situation that they don't want to be in because you're, selfish. So get up a little extra early. If you're running behind, call way in advance or text and say, I'm running behind or I'm not going to be there. Y'all go ahead without me. Be bigger than the group, okay? Second of all, wear the right stuff, okay? Don't show up in shorts and flip-flops and then your buddies are all waiting there in leathers and you're going to go up in the mountains. Because not only does that reflect on you, see episode whatever, but it also reflects on them. Like they want to be riding around with this idiot with flip-flops and shorts and stuff like that, And nobody wants to be like, hey dude, you're not dressed appropriately. Nobody wants to be that guy either. So you're, again, putting people in a position they shouldn't have to be in. Okay? Dress appropriately for the ride. If it's your first time, when you're asked, then ask somebody. Don't be afraid to ask, well, what should I wear? I know many times I've shown up and some people have been like, next time you might want to wear pucks or something like that because we're going up here, we're going up there. And I don't get butthurt about it. Just do it. Protect yourself. Protect your group, and, don't look like an ass, okay? Another thing. Let's say you're that person that they invite on the ride, and you find yourself constantly behind, and they're constantly having to wait for you, or even worse, turn back and come collect you, okay? That's going to happen from time to time, okay? If that happens, here's a suggestion. Next time they ask you, out of the kindness of their heart, knowing that they'll have to wait for your slow ass, maybe just say, hey, I'll catch y'all next time since you're doing whatever ride this is. Maybe I'll catch you for the next ride. And then sign your ass up for a class or something so you get better. Okay? Don't be arrogant and think, oh, I'm just as good. I'm just as fast as these guys. When you clearly are not, okay? And that's fine. Everybody has different riding levels. Everybody has different experience. But don't be the arrogant, I'm not the problem kind of rider, okay? They're asking you because they like you, okay? Don't make their ride suffer because of that, okay? Go to Corner Speed or go see the fine folks at Sport Bike Track Time or any number of people that come on this show that offer training and, defensive driving. You got the BMW schools. There's all kinds of things. Go take one of those for a couple weeks, then go ride with your buddies so they don't have to wait for you. I think that just about covers it. I guess I'm in that same position. My buddies are... I don't know why they don't want me there. I mean, it's not a slow thing. Maybe it's just I'm just too sexually attractive, and they didn't want, they didn't want all the attention coming here. That's what I'm going to stick with. So remember, get with the group, get dressed right, be on time, or get off my lawn.
I'm just going to leave my glasses up for the first run through.
Okay.
Or should I, well, probably in case it's good.